The advanced technology that is available at Mount Elizabeth Novena represents what state-of-the-art medical technology. We've got a state-of-the-art operating microscope that allows us to see beyond the surgical field, and that's critical for minimally invasive keyhole surgery. We've got the ability to check our work and ensure that we get the best results possible.
Some of the cutting-edge equipment that we have ranges from imaging equipment like the Biograph MMR. We can get very clear, detailed images onto the activity of the parts in the body without the risk of course, radiation.
The list of firsts at Mount Elizabeth Novena is really impressive, and this includes some lead-lined rooms which we use for patients with thyroid cancer, and we use them to actually give them radioactive therapy. And we're actually the first private hospital in the region to have them.
We've got a platform from an IT end that allows us to retrieve information, link up information, present data.
The beauty of electronic medical records is that we can access the records from any part of the hospital, anytime, without fail. And quick access means for faster, more efficient care for our patients.
We use the pneumatic tube system to send samples to the laboratory for quick testing so that the doctors can access the results almost immediately.
The laboratory support is really impressive. Patients can actually have their blood tests taken and expect their results back in as short as 2 hours. And this means that even international patients can fly in, have the test done, and expect to be home maybe within the same day.
This all translates to shorter operating time, better clinical results, and of course we've got a brand new ICU here, thoughtfully designed, capable of looking after complex and difficult and very ill patients, and which is really what we want, because the patients deserve the best of technology and the best medical care.
দর্শক মণ্ডলী ফিরে এসেছি আবার চলুন তাদের সাথে আবার কথা বলি প্রথমে ডক্টর ট্যানের সাথে কথা বলছি ডক্টর ট্যান my question to you this time would be minimally invasive versus conventional surgery.
Yes.
So what are the pros and cons?
Okay. Minimally invasive surgery or laparoscopic surgery has taken on a great interest by the public and by doctors as a whole, and it's become more and more popular in the last decade or so. The reason is simple. The scars are much smaller. So for operations, for example, like cholecystectomy, where the gallbladder is removed, or colectomy, where the colon is removed, now you no longer need a 10 to 15 centimeter scar to do the operation. You can do it under very good visualization with a camera and 2 or 3 incisions which measure no more than a centimeter. The operation results are the same. So it's not that if you do a keyhole surgery or laparoscopic surgery, the results are better, but the recovery for these patients are so much faster that they are able to recover, get back home, get back to work, or if they need treatment, for example, like chemotherapy or radiation, they can get to those treatments much faster.
Right.
And this is certainly advantageous for the patient, both in the short and in the long term. So for many operations, I think gradually the minimally invasive approach has become the way to go, and this is easier not only for the patient but also for the surgeons who are practicing it.
Right, thank you. What are the common causes of gallstone?
Okay, gallstone...
And definitely its symptoms, and when do you think it needs to be surgically removed, the gallbladder?
There are certain risk factors for gallstones to be formed. This is a condition that affects women much more than men, probably 4 times as many women as men do.
There are 4 Fs.
Yes, and there are 4 Fs, which is easy to remember. Females, often in their 40s and 50s, who are fertile and who are a little bit overweight. Yeah. So the reason for this is that the estrogen makes the bowel more lithogenic. But there are also other causes, common causes, which are often not brought up. For example, if someone diets often, dieting is actually something which makes the bowel more lithogenic. Another thing is that as people grow older, the gallbladder function becomes poorer. And if you have a gallbladder that's not functioning well and decompressing all the bile inside, it keeps having bile which is left behind. The bile will eventually sediment out from a liquid into sand and then sand into stone. So there are a few risk factors for gallstones. Now, it doesn't mean that if you have a gallstone, you need to have surgery. In fact, the majority of patients with gallstones do not need surgery. the fact that you go for a screening test and someone picks up a gallstone, you are very unlikely to need an operation because you probably have no symptoms. But if you do have symptoms, then surgery would be required. And when I say symptoms, there is a spectrum. The very obvious ones are those with emergency situations like acute pain of the abdomen, fever, or jaundice, in which there's a complication of the gallstone. The much more milder form that we see are patients who come and complain of indigestion, bloatedness after a rich meal.
Rich meal, right.
Yeah, and these are some of the early signs that your gallbladder is not functioning well, and that doing an operation would be able to remove some of these symptoms and return you to a normal lifestyle. So you should discuss this with your local doctor or your surgeon who's going to perform it, but in general, no symptoms, no operation.
So basically no symptom, no operation. When you have symptoms, you operate.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Dr. Chuang, what are the common symptoms of coronary heart disease? I mean, can you have symptoms? There are times when you do not have symptoms.
That's right.
Right? So can you just elaborate on that?
Now, coronary heart disease can be divided into two actually 5 big classes of presentation. That from asymptomatic coronary heart disease to chest pain on exertion to acute heart attack to someone who comes to you with a weak heart already, heart failure, to sudden death. Now, when we talk about symptoms in someone with acute heart attack, the typical symptoms will be that of a crushing chest pain, and this pain can what we call spread to both arms or down the arms, also even to the jaw. And some people might just complain of gastric discomfort. But another key sign of recognizing there is a heart attack is that of cold sweat. Now, when you have chest tightness and cold sweat, it is not good news. Now, for ladies, oftentimes we find that for ladies, they have more atypical symptoms, not the classic symptoms. They often might see a doctor repeatedly for gastric discomfort, not realizing that it is actually related to the heart. They may not have the typical pain, especially in diabetic patients, because when you have advanced diabetes with neuropathy, you may not have the classic symptoms.
Pain, yeah.
Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that you need to have symptoms in order to tell whether you have coronary artery disease, because a lot of patients may have severe blocked arteries and still have no symptoms at all. And when they are found to have, when they first present to a doctor, and the doctor tells them that they have severe blockage or even 100% blockage, they are shocked because they have no symptoms at all. That's right.
Okay. All right. Especially in developing countries, like developed countries, when a person has a heart attack,
That's right.
the common thing, or anything, all they do is they dial 911,
That's right.
and the ambulance is there.
Yes.
But in countries like ours, like when somebody has this classical, pain and sweating and shortness of breath, say having a heart attack, before going to the hospital, what could they do at home, like before starting for the hospital?
Yes, I think there's a difference in the healthcare organization and delivery in different countries.
Right.
We are very thankful that in Singapore, being a small country with less traffic jam and with good healthcare service provision there already, when you have a chest pain, they call 911. We never ask a patient to drive to the hospital themselves because along the way you might develop irregular heartbeat and then you might meet with an accident.
True.
So it is preferred that if you have a chest pain emergency, in an emergency setting, to call 911 and they will bring you directly to a hospital. And from there on, what is essential to us is try to get the patient to the angiogram lab as soon as possible, because the key phrase that we always say is time is muscle.
Right.
If we are able to open up the arteries as early as possible after a heart attack, we can save more heart muscles. And in the long term, patients have a higher chance of survival, better, less long-term sequelae such as the heart failure. Now, in developing countries where distance is an issue and traffic jam is an issue, we know that because you can't reach a hospital in time, so patients, the mortality obviously will go up. because you are longer away from the hospital to get your angiogram and angioplasty done. So what I would usually advise my patient, especially those in those families with elderly citizens with a history of heart attack, to perhaps stock in their house some aspirin tablets.
Yeah.
When you have chest pain with cold sweat and you think it's very likely to be due to a heart attack, swallow 3 tablets of aspirin, because that will help to thin the blood to some extent. You let the patient rest down, and make them comfortable, and call for the ambulance.
Right.
Again, if you are traveling to the hospital in ambulance, you have advantage because you can sound the siren. Don't try to drive in your own vehicle.
True.
Because nobody knows that you have a sick patient in the vehicle. Now, another key thing that we try to inculcate in this public awareness is, if you have a strong family history or someone in the house with a heart problem, you try to learn from authorities that can teach you basic cardiac resuscitation maneuvers.
Right.
We call it BCLS or CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It is good for someone in the family, if not everybody in the family,
At least one of them to know.
That's right, to know how to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation, because having that skill might help to save someone in the house.
That's lovely. Thank you
Yes.
so much for such an information. দর্শক মণ্ডলী, প্রথমে ডক্টর ট্যানকে আমি জিজ্ঞেস করেছি যে আজকাল যে কি হোল সার্জারি হয় সেটার বেনিফিট কি কনভেনশনাল সার্জারি থেকে। উনি বলেছে সার্জারি আউটকাম একই, কিন্তু পেশেন্ট তাড়াতাড়ি বাড়ি যেতে পারছে, তাড়াতাড়ি ক্ষতটা শুকিয়ে যাচ্ছে, যদি ক্যান্সারের জন্য হয়ে থাকে কিমোথেরাপি স্টার্ট করতে পারছে। জিজ্ঞেস করেছি গলস্টোনের কারণ কি, উনি বলেছেন যে মহিলারা বেশি আক্রান্ত হয়, এবং গলস্টোন বলেছে যদি সিমটম না থাকে সার্জারি করার দরকার নেই। এবং ডক্টর চুয়ানকে জিজ্ঞেস করেছি করোনারি হার্ট ডিজিজ সম্বন্ধে, যেখানে কি কারণে এটা হতে পারে এবং হলে কি করা হয়, এবং স্পেশালি জিজ্ঞেস করেছি আমাদের দেশে প্রেক্ষাপটে যদি কোনো রোগীর হার্ট অ্যাট্যাক হয়ে থাকে, উন্নত বিশ্বে আমরা সবাই জানি 911 ডায়াল করলে অ্যাম্বুলেন্স চলে আসে, কিন্তু আমাদের দেশে যেখানে এত যানজট, এত ভিড়, কি করা যেতে পারে। উনি একটা খুব মূল্যবান কথা বলেছেন যে যদি কোনো এলডারলি পেশেন্ট থাকে, বা যদি কোনো পেশেন্ট এমন থাকে যার হাই প্রেশার আছে, হার্ট অ্যাট্যাক হতে পারে, বাসায় অ্যাসপিরিন রাখার জন্য। যদি সোয়েটিং, শর্টনেস অফ ব্রেথ হয়, মনে হচ্ছে খুব চাপ হচ্ছে বুকের মধ্যে, তখন 3টা অ্যাসপিরিন যদি নিয়ে নেয় তাহলে ব্লাডটা খুব তরল হয়ে যায়, এবং এই তরল ব্লাডটা তখন যে জায়গায় ব্লক আছে সেদিক দিয়ে যেতে পারে। পেশেন্টকে রেস্ট দিতে এবং একটি অ্যাম্বুলেন্স কল করতে, নিজে তো গাড়ি চালিয়ে যাবেনই না হাসপাতালে, বরঞ্চ অ্যাম্বুলেন্সকে ডেকে নেবেন। আমরা ছোট্ট একটা বিরতি নিচ্ছি, বিরতির পর আবার ফিরে আসবো, সাথেই থাকুন।